What if King Saul obeyed and David never became king? Picture a battlefield at dawn, mist clinging to the hills, a giant's shadow stretching across the valley. The shepherd boy's sling never whirs. The crown stays on a different head. The songs you know, the city you picture, the symbols that fill stained glass and storybooks, they all shift. In this world, the first king of Israel never falls out of favor. David never sits on the throne, and the map of faith and culture quietly, profoundly, rewrites itself. Let's start where the story really begins. Saul is chosen when the people cry out for a king. He's tall, impressive, the kind of figure that makes a crowd exhale with relief. Samuel anoints him. There is hope, there is unity, and for a time, there is victory. The early chapters are filled with wins against encroaching enemies. The tribes, so often scattered in the days of the judges, move like one people again. But then come two moments that turn the arc. The first happens at Gilgal. Saul is waiting for Samuel to offer the sacrifice before battle. The clock ticks. Soldiers are slipping away, fearful, impatient. Saul, under pressure, takes it on himself to offer the sacrifice. Samuel arrives, sees the smoke rising, and delivers those heavy words. "You acted foolishly. Your kingdom will not endure, not because of one ritual alone, but because this moment reveals something fragile in the king, the impulse to seize control when trust is demanded." The second moment is even harder. God commands Saul to carry out judgment against Amalek, a bitter, violent foe from Israel's past. But Saul spares the king, Agag, and the best of the livestock. It looks like mercy on the surface, maybe even clever politics. Samuel calls it what it is: partial obedience, which is disobedience in full. The first king has drifted from the heart of what he was called to do. Samuel tears Saul's robe. The fabric rips, and so does the monarchy's future. From there, the path you know unfolds. Samuel anoints David in secret. The shepherd becomes the singer at court, then the slayer of Goliath, then the king in waiting on the run. Saul spirals. Jonathan, Saul's son, stands like a quiet pillar of honor, caught between loyalty to his father and friendship with David. In time, Saul falls in battle. David rises. He unites the tribes, captures Jerusalem from the Jebusites, brings the ark into the city with dancing, pens psalms that still hum in the human heart, and establishes the dynasty that becomes legend. Through Solomon, through the temple, through a promise of a throne enduring. That is the canonical arc. Now let's turn the dial gently and listen for a different tune. What if Saul obeyed at both hinges, at Gilgal and with Amalek? What if, when pressure tore at him, he held fast? In this alternate line, Samuel arrives to find a patient king who refused to rush the sacrifice. Later, Saul carries out the command completely. There is no robe torn, no kingdom declared forfeit. Samuel's words, once a warning, broaden into a blessing. Your kingdom would have been established. Imagine that. The Saulide line, steady and confirmed. What changes first? The anointing. Samuel has no reason to seek another. There is no secret oil poured on Jesse's youngest son. The boy with the sling may still write songs, he may still tend sheep, he may still be brave, but he is not the chosen king. He is not the rival in waiting. David is just David, a name among many in Bethlehem. Which brings us to that valley of Elah. The Philistines line up, voices echoing off the hills. A giant steps forward, a champion, confident, armored to the teeth. In our alternate path, who steps out to answer him? Here's a compelling possibility: Jonathan. He is already a hero in the text, scaling a cliff with one companion to rout a Philistine outpost. He trusts in what he calls a divine victory, not tied to numbers. He moves with quiet courage. The battle lines part, and there he is, no sling perhaps, but a spear and a heart that does not shake. He defeats the champion, or at the very least sparks the breaking of Philistine morale. The songs of Israel swell, but their refrain is different. Saul has slain his thousands, and Jonathan his tens of thousands. No sting, no insult, no jealousy. Instead, pride. Saul sees a son fit to inherit. The house of Benjamin shines. What does that do to the map? Without David, Jerusalem is still a hilltop held by the Jebusites. The ark does not dance into a new capital. It may remain at Kiriath Jearim. It may travel to Gibeon. It may even return to Shiloh's orbit if the tabernacle traditions recenter there. Worship stays more diffuse. The magnetic pull of a single holy city comes later, or differently, or not at all in the same way. The phrase, City of David, never lands in our vocabulary. The symbol that later generations call the Star of David? That emblem never becomes the mark of a dynasty. Different banners rise. Different symbols take center stage. Politically, the center of gravity shifts northward. Under Saul, the royal house belongs to Benjamin, nestled between Ephraim and Judah. If his line endures, the court likely leans toward the northern tribes, with strong ties to Ephraimite leadership and border towns with long memories. That means the jealousy that later splits the kingdom after Solomon, north versus south, might never form along the same fault lines, because the ruling house is not from Judah. Or perhaps the fracture shows elsewhere, among local chieftains who resent a long Benjamite rule. Either way, the story of unity and division rearranges its chapters. And Solomon? He is never born, at least not as the famed son of David. The temple as we know it likely doesn't rise when it did, where it did, or with the same splendor. Would there still be a temple one day? Maybe. Humanity gravitates towards centers of worship. A Saulide king, Jonathan or one of his sons, might seek to consolidate faith by building a permanent house for the ark in a different city, perhaps Gibeon or even an eventually conquered Jerusalem. But the timing changes, and with timing come ripple effects. Trade routes, artisan networks, priestly reforms, and sacred music evolve along different paths. And those songs, pause and listen to the quiet shift. So many psalms are attributed to David, not only as poems, but as the heartbeat of private prayer and public worship. In this timeline, the royal court still loves music. Saul's moods still call for comfort, and Jonathan's courage would welcome praise and lament. But the songbook changes authorship. We might have the Songs of Jonathan, a cycle of psalms born from a warrior's humility. Or anonymous temple singers rise to prominence earlier. The language of faith still flows, but the metaphors that shaped centuries, shepherd king, fugitive psalmist, city of Zion, carry different weight, different origin stories. Now, set our alternate camera high above the land. See the Philistines along the coast, the Arameans to the north, the Ammonites across the Jordan. A stable Saulide monarchy might grind the Philistine threat down slowly. Fewer dramatic reversals, more steady campaigns. Jonathan's victories, combined with his father's experience, build a network of fortified towns. Trade improves. The iron monopoly breaks sooner or later. Israel becomes a reliable, mid-sized power, less flashy than a Davidic golden age, but possibly more stable. Of course, history is rarely smooth. What of Saul's temperament? Even if he obeys at those two critical points, the seeds of fear and insecurity still need tending. But suppose obedience raises a different man, grounded by trust, surrounded by wise counsel, with Samuel at his side not as accuser but as guide. The tragedies that spring from a threatened heart, a spear thrown in rage, a priestly town destroyed in paranoia, never happen. Nob is not stained with blood. The priesthood remains unscattered. A whole lineage of quiet leaders keeps their lamps lit. And in the prophetic realm, the language of promise shifts. In our known world, later prophets speak of a house, a branch, a shepherd from David's line. In this alternate current, the hope might attach to Benjamin's house, or perhaps to a broader, less dynastic vision. A righteous ruler without a named family. A return to a federation guided by spirit-filled judges, or a temple-centered covenant that emphasizes priestly renewal over royal lineage. The poetry of Isaiah, the counsel of Nathan and Gad, each would flow, but through different channels. What about the great rupture centuries later? The fall of the northern kingdom to Assyria, the survival of Judah, and then Babylon's hammer blow against Jerusalem. If the monarchy stays Saulide and northern-leaning, Assyria's first storm might strike closer to the royal heart. The kingdom could fall earlier, or it could reorganize, moving the royal seat south only when forced. Or maybe, paradoxically, a more unified, steady monarchy weathers the geopolitics better. Fewer internal civil wars mean stronger defenses, a better diplomatic hand, and a capital chosen for military sense rather than tribal prestige. The future doesn't vanish, it bends. culture bends with it. Artists carve different motifs. Pilgrims travel different roads. The family trees, recited by generations, carry different heroes. We tell bedtime stories about Jonathan's duel at dawn and the steady hand of King Saul II. We recite psalms from a choir director whose name we never learned, not from a shepherd king, but we still find ourselves comforted on long nights. The words are different. The ache they answer is the same. And David? In this world, his life might be modest and luminous in a quieter way. Perhaps he still meets Jonathan, and they remain friends in an uncomplicated peace. Not a bond tested by a throne. Maybe David becomes a captain in Saul's army, known for clever maneuvers but never a rival. Maybe he is remembered as a composer in the king's court, the musician who taught a nation to sing. History often hides its most beautiful souls in supporting roles. A question lingers over Jerusalem. Does Jonathan, after consolidating the borders, look at that fortified ridge of the Jebusites and say, "That is the key"? Does a later Saulide king take the city and rename it something new? Not the city of David, but perhaps the crown of Benjamin? Or does Jerusalem become a symbol only centuries later, when a temple builder finally seeks a hill with walls like a promise? If that move happens later, the religious calendar shifts. Pilgrim feasts align with different routes. Festivals echo different streets. The whole atlas of sacred memory redraws its lines. Think, too, about language. So much of the world's literature, art, and music is shot through with Davidic imagery. The shepherd who becomes king. The fallen who are restored. The city that glows with promise. Without that figure on the throne, another set of images moves into the cultural spotlight. The virtuous heir who yields power gracefully. Jonathan as an archetype of filial faithfulness. The first king who learns obedience under pressure. Saul as a case study in growth instead of tragedy. The nation that matures through steady discipline, not lightning flashes of glory. The myths we lean on to make sense of ourselves would still be there. They'd just rhyme with other sounds. Here is a gentle paradox at the heart of this what-if. The scriptures we know hold both steel and mercy. Judgment against disobedience and tenderness for the contrite. If Saul obeys, we gain a line of kings that might be steady and sure. But we also lose the testimony of a flawed man, David, who fell and wept and wrote words that gave millions permission to bring their whole hearts. Mess, wonder, anger, and awe before God. In this alternate story, perhaps that voice appears in another figure, or perhaps the nation learns to sing its vulnerability in a different key, through communal psalms rather than royal ones, through priestly laments instead of a shepherd's harp. At the same time, we should admit a wild card. Sometimes removing a crisis removes the growth it created. Without the tension between Saul and David, does Israel miss the refining that came from wandering caves and questioning motives? Or does it gain something else instead? Trust built slowly, institutions that mature without being burned down and rebuilt. Stability has a wisdom all its own. Now I want to hear your imagination. Which turning point in this alternate world shapes the rest? Jonathan stepping out to face the giant, or the royal court choosing a different capital? Tell me in the comments which fork in the road you think bends history most. And if you enjoy these respectful, family-friendly what-ifs that explore faith and culture, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next journey. Let's keep tracing the ripples. With a secure Saulide line, international diplomacy takes a different flavor. Tyre and Sidon may still trade cedar and craftsmen, but the deals don't revolve around a Davidic palace. Maybe the great building campaigns never reach the opulent heights we associate with Solomon, and so the kingdom avoids the heavy taxation and forced labor that later feed resentment. Fewer monuments can sometimes mean fewer cracks. The prophets, in this world, tilt their messages to fit the needs of a slow and steady monarchy. Instead of thunderbolts against a king's personal failings, we might hear more caution against institutional complacency. Warnings that even obedience can go stale when it becomes mere habit. The great poetic visions still leap from their scrolls, swords into plowshares, justice rolling like a river. But the addressee on the envelope changes. The name on the royal seal is different. The appeal remains the same. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly. Centuries down the line, When empires muscle across the map, the story of exile and return might rewrite itself as well. If the capital is not Jerusalem, or if it is taken much later, the memory of loss anchors elsewhere. Communities in exile might sing about a different city by a different river. When they return, they rebuild different gates with different names, and children learn to pronounce them with the same pride. The sorrow of displacement is real in any tongue. The hope of home speaks across timelines. All along, one quiet thread twines through this alternate history. Jonathan. In our known world, Jonathan dies young, noble in friendship, a prince without a crown. Here, his legacy expands. Perhaps he rules wisely, then passes the scepter to a son who remembers stories of his father's climb and his father's faith. The dynasty is not defined by a single dazzling founder, but by a model of integrity passed down. Dynasties built on humility last longer than those built on charisma. At least, that's the hope. And David. Let's visit him one last time in this imagined world. Older now, he walks a hillside, not with the weight of a nation on his shoulders, but with a lyre in his hands. He looks at the stars and doesn't need a throne to feel the mystery of being alive. He writes a song that everyone hums, but no one assigns to a king. It enters the bloodstream of worship anonymously, like rain soaking into soil. History remembers him not as the founder of a dynasty, but as a poet whose words softened hard hearts during hard years. There's a quiet beauty to that. So what do we learn from a path not taken? That obedience at a hinge moment can steady an entire house. That one missing rivalry can spare a nation needless wounds. That glory isn't the only way a people matures. Sometimes it's the day in, day out choice to trust, to wait, to listen. And also this, even if the faces change, the longings don't. People still ache for justice. They still reach for songs that make sense of pain and surprise. They still gather around a table to tell stories of deliverance. The names on those stories may differ. The city's skyline may shift. But the human heart, the hopes, the questions, the gentle awe that remains. This is, of course, a respectful thought experiment, not doctrine, a way to explore how closely character and history hold hands. In our world, the ark we inherited has given us David's Psalms, Jerusalem's enduring pull, and countless works of art and faith. In our alternate world, we gain other gifts: steady leadership, a different songbook, and perhaps a prince-turned-king whose courage sets the tone for generations. Whichever path you imagine, both share a quiet truth. History can turn on a single choice, and sometimes the most heroic act is not the flashy one in the valley, but the hidden one. Waiting, trusting, obeying, when the pressure is loud and the clock is ticking. Thanks for walking this road with me. Take a breath, look back at the crossroads we visited, and carry a thought into your week. If a single act of trust can alter a kingdom, what might a single act of kindness do in a family, a neighborhood, a life?